it is ridiculous to allow people to come into this country with no allegiance to our nation, no understanding of our culture, our traditions, our history, and vote in our elections to change the future of this country.
Keeping our republic is on the line, and it requires patriots with great passion, dedication, and eternal vigilance to preserve our freedoms. Jenny Beth Martin is the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots. She is an author, a filmmaker, and one of Time Magazine's most influential people in the world. But the title she is most proud of is mom to her boy-girl twins. She has been at the forefront, fighting to protect America's core principles for more than a decade. Welcome to the Jenny Beth Show.
Today, we're joined by my friend, Rosemary Jenks, who has the Immigration Accountability Project. We're going to be talking about the SAVE Act for only citizens voting, and also about this talk of amnesty that we're hearing a lot about these days for illegal immigrants. Rosemary, thanks so much for joining me today.
It's always a pleasure, Jenny Beth.
Well, let's talk about the positive things, and then we'll talk about the more negative things. So we'll save the worst for last. When it comes to the SAVE Act, why do you think that's so important that we get it passed? And to be clear, for anyone who is just joining us for the first time, that is a bill that would require only citizens. Well, it would require that you have to show proof of citizenship to register to vote.
Yeah, so actually just 10 minutes ago, I posted on our social media that a non-citizen has been indicted or arrested in New Hampshire for voting illegally. So even though we're told all the time, non-citizens don't vote because it's illegal, they won't do it. You know, illegal aliens don't vote because it's illegal. They don't register to vote because it's illegal, but they do. And that's the problem. We have more non-citizens in the United States right now than we have ever had in our entire history, including during the Great Wave at the turn of the last century. And the fact that you can use a driver's license and a social security number to register to vote, and that we give driver's licenses and social security numbers to millions of non-citizens in this country, including illegal aliens, means that they have everything they need to register to vote. And when you combine that with the motor voter law that basically requires DMVs to give access to voter registration when you get a driver's license, if you don't speak English, how are you going to know what that little sentence above that checkbox says that says I am a U.S. citizen under penalty of perjury? You're not going to understand that. So if the DMV employee says, just check that box and sign it, you're going to check that box and sign it. So people, non-citizens are being registered to vote. We know this. We saw before the last election, 6,000 non-citizens were removed from the voter rolls in Virginia alone. There were thousands in Oregon who were mistakenly registered to vote because of the motor voter process. So we know this is happening. We have to take steps to fix it because every single non-citizen vote cancels an American's vote. That's the critical part. If even one non-citizen votes, one American's vote has been canceled, and that's too many.
It is too many. And there are not very many things, I think, when you're in our country that distinguish you from being a citizen versus an immigrant. We are very, very generous and very, very gracious to people who are in our country who are non-citizens. But the two things that always stand out in my head that do distinguish you are citizens are able to vote in American elections, and Americans have an American passport. But if you take that away, there's hardly anything that even differentiates people.
That's absolutely right. And I mean, the fact that our vote in a constitutional republic, our vote is the critical deciding factor for the future of our nation. It's our right to make those decisions.
Right.
You know, it is ridiculous to allow people to come into this country with no allegiance to our nation, no understanding of our culture, our traditions, our history, and vote in our elections to change the future of this country. So yeah, it's a right we have to protect.
Well, and it isn't even like if you're allowing registration of non-citizens, they haven't even gone through the same work that immigrants go through to become a citizen in this country. There's a test, there's years of waiting time, there's all sorts of hurdles they have to go through to become a citizen, and they cherish that citizenship. And their citizenship and their vote shouldn't be canceled by someone who hasn't honored and gone through that same process.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of immigrants work very hard and diligently to naturalize and become U.S. citizens. And they do that. And by the way, when they become naturalized U.S. citizens, they have to formally renounce their home country. And so when they do that, they are declaring their allegiance to the United States. And that's why we welcome them with all of the rights of citizenship, which is exactly what should happen. If we're going to allow people to naturalize, we have to treat them as full citizens. Which means the right to vote. And yes, it cheapens their votes. It cancels their votes just as much as it cancels Americans' votes when non-citizens are allowed to vote.
It cancels their vote and it cheapens the process that they went through to become naturalized citizens. So we have this piece of legislation, the SAVE Act, and you're very good at tracking things on Capitol Hill. You've done that for a long time. So what do you think about the approach we're taking to try to get it attached to must-pass legislation? And what do you think activists should do to help?
So unfortunately, our politics in this country have become so polarized that almost nothing happens on a bipartisan basis. This should be the easiest bipartisan vote that we can imagine. I mean, the polling on this is, you've done polling on this, and it's 75.
It's 80 plus.
80 plus. And so it should be bipartisan, but it is not. And the fact is that there are people in Congress who actually want non-citizens to vote. They want them counted in the census. They want them counted for apportionment. They want them to vote. So the bill passed the House with a tiny handful of Democrats and all the Republicans. It has not been taken up in the Senate, and it is very unlikely that it would get 60 votes in the Senate, unfortunately, and it requires 60 votes to pass on its own. So the only option left is to attach it to a so-called must-pass bill, which is, the National Defense Authorization Act or an appropriations bill or a continuing resolution. It's a difficult path, but it is one that absolutely should be pursued by the Republicans in Congress and the White House so that we can get this done. And as you know, President Trump has signed an executive order on election integrity. This is a key part of election integrity. So let's get that into law so that we can, put one little issue behind us and move on from this, knowing that our elections are more secure. So I think it's a great idea. I think that people should be calling their members of Congress, particularly House and Senate Republican leadership, and demanding that the SAVE Act be put on any must-pass, whatever the next must-pass piece of legislation is. And again, that may be the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, or it may be an appropriations bill, but it needs to be attached and passed by both chambers.
Well, and I'm very glad that we're able to partner with you on this as we're promoting it in the month of August and going on a bus tour and asking people to take different actions. Some of the actions that we're asking people to take are just to go in their neighborhood and talk to their neighbors and get their neighbors to sign a petition saying the same thing, that we want to attach to must-pass legislation, and then holding an ice cream social or some other event at their house to talk about the issue, get people to sign a petition, and then just chill out and have a good time. And then we also are asking people to do sign waiving events, and just we want to draw attention to the issue. Americans agree on this. It's something that shouldn't be controversial at all, and somehow it is. But if the left wants to make it some big controversy, then let's just show them that this is something we can agree on. It's not a left-right issue, and let's get it done so that we're protecting our elections.
Yeah, and on this issue, like so many others, the big donor class has a say 24/7. They're always in the ear of Congress and the White House. It's time for Americans to raise our voices And I mean, this is one of the great things about Tea Party Patriots. You guys have cornered the market on getting Americans to raise their voices and, make themselves heard. And this is an area where we really need to do this. And we are so proud to partner with you in doing this.
Well, thank you. And I encourage everyone to sign up on our website. I think that our website is, I'm not positive what the website is, but you can go to teapartypatriots.org and get the information on it. Now, I think it's only citizensvotemonth.com. That's the website we have redirecting to it. Now, I'd also like to talk to you about another issue that's on both of our minds and has been on the news and chatter online a lot lately, and that is amnesty or potential amnesty for illegal aliens in this country. And there's some people who are confusing or trying to confuse the issue and say that they're calling for setting aside laws for a certain group of people and saying those laws no longer apply to those people, which is what amnesty is, and saying it's not amnesty. And you and I, thanks to your intelligence on the issue, have had to fight this so many times. It's like whack-a-mole. It just comes up and you have to whack it back down, and it comes up and it just keeps popping up. So what is the mole doing this time?
Well, so first of all, I just want to say, and these are my words, I will claim them. It is absolutely shameful that any Republican member of Congress or politician would bring up amnesty right now. I mean, we just suffered through 4 years of completely open borders, huge increases in crime by illegal aliens, gang members committing crimes. Americans have suffered over the last 4 years. We are at the very beginning stages of cleaning that up. The whole point, in my view, the whole point of passing the One Big Beautiful Bill was to fund border security and immigration enforcement because ICE needed money for detention beds and to ramp up deportations. If we start talking about amnesty now, whatever you call it, if we start talking about it publicly, self-deportations are going to stop.
They probably already are stopping.
That's absolutely possible. I mean, this is what is so damaging about even having this conversation now is that, why would any illegal alien decide to self-deport if they're like, well, there's going to be an amnesty on the table soon, so I might get that. I'm going to stay and take my chances. That is not what we want. That is not what we voted for in November. And that is not what the Trump administration has been on the path to do. So that in and of itself is truly shameful. So what is happening right now is unfortunately being led by Republicans. And Congresswoman Salazar from Florida has introduced a bill called the Dignity Act. And she says this is not amnesty, this is dignity for illegal aliens. And what it has 4 separate amnesties in it.
Which is undignified.
So undignified and unlawful and, immoral and all of the rest. So the definition of an amnesty is when a government waives the consequences for a criminal act for a certain category of people. So here she's proposing that the federal government would waive the consequence of illegal immigration, which is a crime, and the consequence is deportation. So you waive the deportation for a class or 3 classes plus employers of illegal aliens. There's no way to get around the fact that that is amnesty. It is amnesty 100% pure and simple. So it doesn't matter if there's a path to citizenship. It doesn't matter if they're getting temporary permission to stay and work or permanent permission to stay and work. If you're waiving the deportation, it's amnesty. So her bill is amnesty for anyone who entered the country prior to the Biden administration. Now think about that. First of all, how is it more moral to have entered the United States illegally 10 years ago as opposed to 3 years ago.
Well, and 3 years ago, the people could argue, well, the government was already setting aside the law and not obeying the law. Like the government was complicit in the last 4 years.
That's right.
Before Trump. You would think you'd be more understanding to those people than the others.
Yeah, well,
there's no logical sense about it.
And how is it better to reward people who have successfully violated our laws for longer?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
No, not at all.
But the other question is, how do you prove it? How do you prove someone has been here for more than 5 years? So her bill says that you can provide, utility bills, which can be printed on your home computer.
Right.
You can get affidavits from friends and relatives. Gee, Mom, will you write me an affidavit saying that I've been here for 10 years? Or,
and I'll write one for you.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the amnesties. Then it has a rolling permanent amnesty for any spouses or children of U.S. citizens who are here illegally. And that just goes on forever, so there's a huge incentive to come to this country illegally.
And that's rolling. So that would bring people in the future. That's a magnet. It's not just rolling. It's a magnet.
Yes.
It's a big, huge,
100%.
like a sun magnet.
Yes. Yeah. For marriage fraud and I mean, so many problems with that. It also is full amnesty for the Dreamer population, not the DACA population. The DACA population who has signed up for the program through the government. And, there are around 500 to 600,000 of those now. That it would include them, but it would be a population of about 2.5 million, according to most estimates, who would get an immediate path to citizenship. But then the fourth one is, this is amnesty for the employers. Every employer who hired one of these illegal aliens, the consequences, the fines and criminal penalties for hiring an illegal alien are being waived by the government.
Wow.
Because this is critical. There is a provision in this bill that actually says that none of the information provided by the illegal alien in the application can be used for law enforcement purposes. So even if the illegal alien commits fraud on the application, that fraud cannot be used to deport him. This is why in the 1986 amnesty, we had the same provision put in the law with, Congress in its infinite wisdom. And we ended up giving amnesty and a green card to Mahmoud Abu Halima, who was one of the World Trade Center bombers. That man has a green card to this day because DHS cannot use the information in his file that he filed for amnesty to prove that he applied fraudulently. He's got a green card. So the unbelievable probability of fraud in any kind of amnesty like this. I mean, it would be one thing, and I'm not justifying this, but if you decided to take just the DACA population, because they have all been registered with the federal government for years now, you have their criminal histories, you know who they are, you know who they are not.
And tell people what DACA is one more time.
DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's the illegal amnesty that President Obama signed by an executive order. And it has been going on, obviously, for many years. President Trump tried to end it and was blocked by the courts. It's still in litigation and likely, I think, to be found illegal because it was not done through the Administrative Procedures Act. But, that at least is the concrete population. Right. If you're doing anything bigger than that, the risk of fraud is exponential. I mean, this is a population by design, by definition, we don't know who they are. Here's another terrifying thing. If a person crosses the border illegally, so they get to northern Mexico and they ditch all their documents and then they cross the Rio Grande, then the Border Patrol asks them who they are. They give a different name because they know they have a criminal record somewhere in their home country. They give a different name. Our federal government creates them a new identity in that name that they provided. We have literally no idea who these people are. And yet Maria Salazar and several other Republicans and Democrats want to give them amnesty.
we have to make sure we stop this.
Yes.
And there were several Republicans who co-signed this bill. Do they know what they were doing? Are they claiming they didn't know? What do they not understand about the last election results?
So I mean, I can't answer that because I don't know what is going in their heads. I know that a lot of them have big donors who want cheap labor. That is a big part of the problem. Some of them have actually come out publicly and said, well, there's a meatpacking plant in my district and they told me they need the labor. Great. So you're going to give amnesty to, 13, 14 million people because a, meatpacking plant needs labor? We have plenty of labor in this country. We do not need it to be illegal. So all of these claims are absurd. And in terms of pretending that they don't know what it is, this is just a big lie it's been going on since, before the Gang of Eight bill in 2013. That was massive amnesty. Which
is how I met you for the first time.
Yes. Where people say, well, it's not amnesty if it's not a direct path to citizenship. Well, the definition I gave you, which is from Black's Law Dictionary, has nothing to do with citizenship or whatever status you're getting. It's waiving the deportation. It's waiving the penalty for the criminal act.
That's right. And that's amnesty.
It's amnesty.
And I mentioned this yesterday at a meeting we were in together, that when you sit there and say it's not amnesty, even though it is, it's sort of like saying a boy isn't a boy. No, boys are boys, girls are girls. Amnesty is amnesty. You can try to change the definition of it, but you're not. We know what it is. What's remarkable to me is that Americans have heard these arguments about amnesty for at least 12 years that I've been working on it with you, and even before. And over and over and over, when they think about how it is not fair to the people who followed the law and obeyed the law to allow others to cut in line in front of them and give them some sort of pathway to a legal status, and I'm not saying even citizenship, just giving them a pathway to a legal status, which is breaking the law and ignoring the consequences. Americans think it's wrong. They think that's not fair. And we just did a poll on this. 77% of Americans think that it is not fair to do that, and it is not right. This is, again, it's not a left-right issue. It's not a Republican-Democrat issue. Americans get this is a problem. And I think it's part of what elected Donald Trump to be president. If they weren't sure that the illegal immigration problem was a problem prior to Joe Biden turned many people and made them realize, oh, this is a huge problem. Because it wasn't just that every state was in a border state, every county became a border county. It was affecting everywhere in the country. And people realized there's something not right about what's going on. And if you allow amnesty for the people who came illegally before Biden, then there's going to be somebody else very soon who introduces another bill that allows the people who came after Biden or during Biden's years. It won't stop. They won't stop.
Absolutely true. I mean, remember, the 1986 amnesty was supposed to be the one and only final amnesty. We deal with illegal immigration and then we move on. We don't ever have to do it again. Well, that hasn't worked out very well. And we've had like 7 or 8 amnesties since then at smaller scale, and many more than that proposed at much larger scale. And here we are again. And, it's unfair to legal immigrants. It's unfair to Americans, and especially at the lower levels of the economy, the people who can least afford it have to compete for jobs, for housing, for resources with illegal aliens. And I think that's one of the primary reasons that the legal Hispanic population has gone so far to the right, because they realize, they had to probably pay thousands of dollars to go through the legal process. They waited in line often for years. And yet there are all of these illegal aliens here competing for jobs. And of course, illegal aliens can always undercut American workers and legal immigrants because they're willing to accept pennies on the dollar. And so the whole system is unfair. And to actually reward the lawbreakers is just beyond the pale.
Yeah, it's like, it's not, it can't happen. We have to do everything we can to stop it. And it is so wrong on so many different levels. And you mentioned the people who entered legally. And I know some people who've gone through that naturalization process, and they probably spent about $20,000 over the course of years, not in one big check, to pay to attorneys in legal fees to help them get through the process. Yep. It might be $1,000 or $2,000 a year, but it's a long, lengthy process, and usually you have to have an attorney helping you navigate it. So it's wrong to them. It's wrong to the Americans for the reasons that you just said. And because it creates a magnet to bring people here, it winds up creating an environment where exploitation of those people is more likely to happen, and who would wind up coming into the country again illegally. And one of the things that horrifies me the most about illegal immigration is just we have people who are indentured servants. We have sex slaves in this country. We're not supposed to have these things. We fought a civil war to get rid of those things, and to know that it's happening in my time, that's wrong. We have to do all we can to prevent that. And when they get up and they think they're being dignified or they're being compassionate, I just challenge all of them, go, and maybe right now would not be the best time, but if they'd been to the border about 9 months ago and watched what was happening, they'd realize that was not dignity.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the pot farm, the marijuana farm that was raided in California last week, the week before, where they found, I think it's now 14 unaccompanied children who were basically being forced to work there. They should have been in school. They were not in school. These are 14 of the 30,000 that the Biden administration lost. And there's an additional 270,000 that it's questionable whether they lost. But, these are children who have been labor trafficked. Then there are countless more who have been sex trafficked. The border statistics are shocking when you consider the fact that I think it was it 30%? Maybe it was higher than that it's been a while since we had to talk about border security because it's all fixed now,
right,
thankfully. But the share of women and girls who are raped trying to get to our southern border and get across, because they're completely under the control of the cartels. Every inch of the southern border, the Mexican side of it, is under the control of the cartels. You cannot cross that border without paying a smuggler who's probably paying the cartels or paying the cartels directly. And those people have no caring, no concern for the lives of anyone they're dealing with. It is, these people are commodities.
And again, that's what we fought a civil war to try to prevent, that kind of attitude toward our fellow human being. Yep. It's horrible. And with the work that you've done and the work that I've done, we've encountered people who've gone through some of the most horrific situations. And I can't prevent I can't go back in time and change what happened to those people. All that I can do is try to prevent that from happening in the future. And one way we can prevent it is to make sure that the law means something in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I challenge any of these Republicans to go and talk to an Angel family and explain to the Angel family why amnesty is a good thing. Because, when you're looking in the eyes of someone who has had their life ripped from them with the death of a child or a spouse or a sibling, I dare you to explain how amnesty is helpful.
Yeah, I met some of those angel families back in 2013 when we were working to prevent the Gang of Eight bill from happening. And I remember having this light bulb moment that I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit that this is where I was, but I think it's helpful to understand. Like, I thought, okay, I was meeting them, and I think that there were some whose family member, their child, was killed from a traffic accident from an illegal immigrant. And I was thinking, well, that's very sad that their child was killed and traffic accidents happen. And then someone, I don't remember who, but they pointed out to me, but just remember, that accident never would have had the opportunity to happen had our border been secure. Had the person who entered illegally never been here, then that opportunity never would have happened. So it is because we were not securing our border as an American, as a country, as a society, that it created the opportunity for other laws to be broken and for their child to be killed. And that's not compassionate either.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether it is as horrific and violent as Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungaray. It also can be something that is a bit more common, like a car accident. Either way, the opportunity for it to happen never would have happened had the people never been able to enter our country illegally.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Every single crime committed by an illegal alien is a preventable crime.
Yes.
We could have prevented it. So, giving amnesty is not going to prevent it. It is going to actually increase the likelihood of crimes like that happening more.
Yeah. So what are you doing right now to work on trying to prevent amnesty from happening?
Well, we are trying to work directly with members of Congress to make sure that they understand that, this is the last thing you should be talking about. We do not want there to be any air under this bill because just the talk of it is going to increase the pressure on the border. I mean, we saw this, unfortunately, under President Trump when he was supporting a plan by Senator Grassley that was a compromised plan to, get some border security measures in exchange for a Dreamer amnesty. And we saw the number of unaccompanied children skyrocket in 2019, right after that conversation started. So it doesn't take much because I'll tell you, the cartels are watching everything that happens in Washington, D.C., and they are using it in their advertising. I mean, it is sickening. Like, they are telling people now's the time to go because, they're talking about amnesty in the United States. Congress is going to pass an amnesty. So we'll get you in now so you can be there ready for it when they pass it. And even though they're not going to qualify for any of this except through fraud, the cartels use all of this information. So we have got to just quash this completely.
Right. And I think it's very good that you're doing that. We're going to have people making phone calls to Congress, especially to the co-sponsors of the forget it, the Undignified Act. I'm not calling it what she said. It's sort of like the Inflation Act that Biden had. I can't say that it was a reduction act. I'm not going to lie. So we're going to have people calling about that and just saying you need to pull your sponsorship from the bill. This is not what we want. It's not what we voted for, and we're watching.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We need to have pressure on the Republican co-sponsors of this. I mean, we need to have pressure on the Democrat co-sponsors too. But the real fear on this is a discharge petition. And I think that's a real possibility that the Democrats who are part of this effort will file a discharge petition on this bill. And if they can get all of the Democrats and even just the number of Republicans who have already co-sponsored this bill, they can force it to the floor for a vote. And that is terrifying because, there have been a lot of changes in the Republican Party over the last 10 or 15 years, but we still have a lot of cheap labor Republicans who are listening too hard to their donors.
Well, we're going to have to do all that we can to stop that. But I think the way to stop it is to try to prevent them from ever even thinking about signing a discharge petition. If they really think it's great, then let it go through the normal process. Don't set aside the rules so that you can set aside the law.
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
Yeah.
It's all wrong, but that is especially wrong.
Yeah. It is all wrong.
Well, is there anything, where can our listeners go to learn more about what you're doing? And is there anything that you would like them to do? Any call to action for them?
So our website is iaproject.org. iaproject.org. We have all of our social media linked from there. We also have a ton of resources there, including fact sheets. We have a fact sheet on the Salazar amnesty bill. And we have the legislative record for this Congress, because we're fairly new, of every member of Congress, House and Senate. And so you can look up all of their immigration votes and the bills they've introduced, the bills they've co-sponsored, and information about those bills on our website under the member accountability page. We also have all of the executive actions on immigration listed. So, I think contacting your own representatives is the most important thing that any American can do. If you want to have a voice, it's there for you. You just have to take it. You just have to, make that phone call, send that email, whatever it is. Phone calls work better than emails. But you deserve to have a voice, and your member of Congress needs to hear from you.
That's very important advice. And Rosemary, before we end, I want to ask one more thing. We talked a lot about, we want the SAVE Act to pass and we don't want amnesty. But one thing I failed to ask you is, what do you think about the border situation right now and President Trump's actions that he's taken to secure it?
Well, obviously, it's fantastic. I mean, I just go back to when, I'm sorry to do this, it's like, beating a dog that's down. But when Senator Lankford introduced his bill last year,
bless his heart,
with that he had negotiated with Alejandro Mayorkas and Chris Murphy, and said that, this is the only way we can secure the border. And it basically guaranteed that at least 5,000 illegal aliens would come in every single day.
And that it couldn't be stopped.
It would have tied President Trump's hands and prevented him from doing what he has done. And it is just glorious to see him come in and literally within days secure that border, which hasn't been done in my lifetime. Right. And, the change in the attitude among Border Patrol agents and ICE officers is just night and day. This is historic, and for the love of God, we need to keep it going.
Yes. And I am so thankful for President Trump for getting this border secured. I am so thankful. From the moment he went down the escalator and he started talking about the issue, it was not a top issue then for most Americans. And he, because he is truly a leader, has led people, and now it is a top issue. And people want a secure border. They want to deport the people who've entered illegally. They don't want to have amnesty, and they voted for President Trump largely because of this issue.
Yeah, it's true. And we need to find an America that doesn't have a slave labor class.
Yes.
That doesn't have indentured servitude. And we'll find that we do just fine. Our economy will just keep rolling right along. We're in the 21st century. We can mechanize a lot of manual labor. We have AI. There are so many options other than enslaving human beings.
And we should definitely be doing all we can to prevent enslaving human beings.
Yes.
Rosemary Jenks, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jenny Beth.
The Jenny Beth Show is hosted by Jenny Beth Martin, produced by Kevin Mooneyhan, and directed by Luke Livingston. The Jenny Beth Show is a production of Tea Party Patriots Action. For more information, visit teapartypatriots.org.
If you like this episode, let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment or a 5-star review. And if you want to be the first to know every time we drop a new episode, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for whichever platform you're listening on. If you do these simple things, it will help the podcast grow, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.